Hello, this is Mr. Hilko. I am going to be creating a couple videos for your classwork on your second lesson, pre-proof reasoning, in the Unit 8 proofs packet. I'm going to split the classwork into two videos to make them more reasonable in length. I'm going to create this video, which is going to be based off of page 4, and then an additional video, which will be based off of pages 5 and 6. Okay, going over to page 4, pre-proof reasoning. First, let's discuss the reason for doing this. So if you think about a legal argument, a legal argument's based off of facts, and then off those facts, you can make different conclusions. That's what we're basically doing with today's lesson. We're going to assume that we have basic mathematical facts that are assumed to be true, and that's what our given represent. And off those given factual pieces of information, what conclusions can we make directly from those facts? Okay, so it's like a logical way of arguing, but it's all based off of fact. Okay, so we're going to start with question number 1. I drew a quick little diagram here before we started. It says we're given two perpendicular lines, CD and AB. All right, so I drew perpendicular lines to give me a little idea of what conclusion I can make if I know we have perpendicular lines. And what I know is if I have perpendicular lines, I in turn have two right angles. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for in the diagram to the right. Okay, if I know that CEB, which is this angle, is a right angle, I also know that angle CEA, this one, is also right. All right, and the reason and you got to start to remember these statements, is perpendicular lines form right angles. Okay, so that was number 1. Number 2, given the measure of angle 2 and the measure of angle 3 equal 90, the conclusion that can be made is that angles 2 and 3 are complementary. Okay, and the reason for that would be complementary angles are two angles whose sum is 90 degrees. Okay. Number 3, given E is the midpoint of AB. All right, so think about it. If you have a segment AB and you know E is in the middle, right? E is the midpoint. Okay. What statement can you make? All right, well, what we know is that the midpoint divides a segment into two congruent pieces. Okay, so what we can say, we got AB over here and E is the midpoint. We can make a congruent statement and say that AE, well, let me do it in pen, this left side, AE, segment AE, is congruent, so draw your congruent symbol to, and actually to match up corresponding parts, if you name this one AE, you'd want to name this one BE. And the reason is a midpoint divides a segment into two congruent segments. Okay. Number 4, given angle 2 is congruent to angle 3, okay, so we look at that. Angle 2 and angle 3 are congruent. What we would technically know is that EG bisects right angle, I'm sorry, we don't know it's right, angle CEB. Okay, so if these angles are congruent, it means that this is an angle bisector. All right, so we're saying that ray EG bisects, that's a conclusion, ray EG bisects angle CEB, and the reason is just give the definition of what an angle bisector is. An angle bisector divides an angle into 2. And now we're going to start using, sometimes if you don't want to write out the words, you can use symbols, all right? Instead of writing out the words congruent, you can use a symbol into 2 congruent parts. You could do the same thing with perpendicular. If you use the word perpendicular, you could use the perpendicular symbol, okay? Number 6, ray EH bisects angle AEC. So let's look for that in the diagram. EH bisects angle AEC, all right? What conclusion can we make? All right. Well, if it's an angle bisector, I know that it divides the angle into 2 congruent angles. So the conclusion would be that angles 1 and angle 7 are congruent. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 7, okay? And the reason would be the same reason as number 4 above. An angle bisector divides an angle into 2 congruent parts. Okay, I realize I went out of order. Let's go to number 5 now. All right, I skipped number 5. Given angle AEG and angle 5 are supplementary. So think of the word supplementary. What does it mean to be supplementary? All right. Well, we know to be supplementary that the angles add up to 180 degrees. So that's the conclusion we can make. We know that the measure of angle AEG plus the measure of angle 5 have to total 180 degrees. And the reason we know that is just based off of the definition of supplementary angles. All right, what are supplementary angles? Supplementary angles are 2 angles whose sum is 180 degrees. Okay. We already did 6, so let's go right below and do number 7. All right, this is actually a very important one that we use quite a bit within proofs. It says the given information is that angle 3 and angle 6 are vertical angles. So if you think back to the earlier in the year when we talked about vertical angles are formed by intersecting lines. So 3 and 6, boom and boom, are vertical angles. So what's the conclusion we can make? All right, well, if they're vertical angles, we actually know that angle 3 is congruent to angle 6, all right? They have to be on the same measure. And the reason is vertical angles are, you can write out congruent or you can use the symbol. So that was 7. Okay? Moving along to 8. The given information, all right, so the statement of fact is that we have a linear pair, angle AEG and angle GEB. All right. Now remember what a linear pair is. All right. A linear pair would be 2 angles that form a straight angle. All right. But if we take that a step farther, we know that those 2 angles have to be supplementary. So we're going to say that the conclusion is that angle AEG and angle GEB are supplementary. Okay? And the reason, if 2 angles form a linear pair, then they are supplementary. Okay. Number 9. All right. Given the diagram, all right, the conclusion is that the measure of angle 4 plus the measure of angle 3 equals the measure of DEG. So let's just look at that. All right, that diagram. It's saying that angle 3, the measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 4 equals the full angle, which is angle D, E, G. All right. That could actually just be the angle addition postulate, which is saying that an angle is equal to the sum of its two parts. Okay. There's the angle addition postulate. There's also the segment addition postulate. Okay. So those are two options there. Number 10 is crossed out. Number 11, the last one on this page. Given angle 4 is right, all right, what can we say? Well, if it's a right angle, all right, we know the measure of angle 4 is 90 degrees, all right? And the reason a right angle has a measure of 90 degrees. Okay, so that completes page 4 of your classwork. As you can see, it's based off a lot of terms that you've been exposed to throughout the course. Now it's just a matter of making sure we know our definitions. We know when we can say these certain things based off of the given information. But a lot of the majority of the success in proofs is based off of knowing these simple statements and just being able to apply them appropriately in the right manner. Okay, so if you need to make flashcards, you do want to start remembering these statements that I wrote out in red. Okay, thanks for joining. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.